Now we have this 13-foot bonfire that nobody can sit next to.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking, we had to sit 20 feet away from this thing because the fire was so hot. Welcome to Achieving Failure, a podcast that gives you a break from politics, popular trends, and just brings you good old life stories and adventures. I'm your host, Chris, and join us each week as my friends and I reminisce over stories who made us who we are. And now on to the show. Technical difficulty. I ran out of booze. So, going back to the Boy Scouts, every camping trip we went on consisted of carrying gasoline with us.
Okay, yeah. But where is this story going? Because I feel like something bad's about to happen.
Oh, no, I mean, this made my Boy Scout experience. A couple times we built one of the more memorable. We went on a camping trip. I'm gonna lie.
Fuck it, I'm going to lies.
I'm gonna lie my way through this. One of the trips we spent was going back to Novi Bosco, and it was wintertime. It was super cold. It was like in December, and we would always go on a weekend trip. And one of the more memorable trips that I remember, at least winter-wise, was we built. And again, our staple for our Boy Scout troop was no bonfires less than 6 feet, and everything was doused in kerosene. So one of the times, and I don't know if you've ever seen like a lean-to, like a camping lean-to, where it's kind of like a three-sided structure. It's got the walls, it's got the side, it's got the little... One of the guys climbed up on top and ran a fishing line into the campfire. Well, for our like nightly campfire, just kind of like, hey, the first night, built a 6-foot bonfire. Because again, we had a height limit, a minimum. You don't be a bitch.
Build a fire.
Build a fire. This ain't no puss camp. This is a man's world now. And we built this fire, and he climbed up on the lean-to, and he took a piece of string or a fishing line, and of course had an entire roll of toilet paper doused in gasoline, and whipped this thing down the fishing line, which had to be 20 feet away. And it was a cool thing. Like, he obviously knew. It was kind of like, oh, here we go. And then when it hit the fire, it just went boom. So that's kind of how everybody has their Boy Scout experience, but it was our experience of we were more or less, at that particular time, we were kind of noted as like the pyro group.
That's better than being known as a fucking cheater.
Yeah. There was a couple other funny stories that we did. We did another camping trip, and because again, the Boy Scouts is all about more or less survival, life learning, building knots, campfire. It was
camaraderie.
It was camaraderie, but it was a lot of like wilderness survival. Just how to build things, how to survive in the wilderness. Well, one of the times we were camping, we're camping at a campsite, and all of a sudden a bunch of us all went out, and the next thing you know is all the fathers are there, because the fathers are the leaders, and they're going, where the hell do you keep coming back with these trees? And we're just going into the woods, chopping down trees.
Whole trees?
I mean, they're not whole trees, but I mean, they were probably about 6 inches wide. 6 to 8 inches wide, something like that. But what wound up happening was we wound up erecting a 20 to 30 3-tier tower from just rope and wood that we collected in the woods. Somewhere in this, somewhere we have a picture. I would love to, if I could find a picture, I'd love to put it on the episode. It is like a 2 to 3 tier massive tower. And people are like, what the hell is, what is that? And it was all just shit we found in the woods. And we had tiers.
And you could actually, you could
literally
stand.
We had ladders. You could climb up to the second tier. We had a ladder. You climb up to the third tier. Yeah.
God
and it held.
damn.
It was massive. Well, when we were done with it, there's nothing else to do but burn it. So now we have this 13-foot bonfire that nobody can sit next to.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking, we had to sit 20 feet away from this thing because the fire was so hot.
It's just roaring.
It was just insane. Of course, maybe somebody may or may have not doused gasoline on it to get it started.
Well, I mean, yeah, it needs a little help.
But, like, that's just how it was. And, like, that, for me, that was me, because we grew up, while we're building this tower, we were listening to Tool. We were listening to Korn, Limp Bizkit. I was introduced to crazy bands like Local H, which nobody really knows who Local H is, but when you hear the song, you'll go, I know that fucking song.
Play it.
I was introduced to Nine Inch Nails. Nine Inch Nails is the first time I ever heard.
Wait a second. This is Boy Scouts?
This is Boy Scouts. This is like late 90s. I was listening to Limp Bizkit. I got into Boy Scouts listening to my mother's shit, like the Beatles and Michael Jackson.
I'm trying to figure it out without dating myself.
Because when I was in...
Too much. Because I remember being 7, 8 years old and standing in the garage at my parents' house with my buddy and air guitaring to shit like Korn and Limp Bizkit. But I know you're older than I am.
Yeah. I got a couple years on you.
Yeah. I mean, you were probably a couple years deep into Boy Scouts by the time I started.
I don't even remember, because I don't even remember the years, but I remember at the age of 18, 17 or 18, I actually got Eagle Scout. So I actually went through all the steps and I wound up getting Eagle Scout, which is a huge fucking thing.
Nope. Got kicked out.
You're a cheater.
Piece of shit.
So I wound up getting Eagle Scout, that's a whole nother crazy story, which is actually kind of cool. Like, I know it's a really, really hard thing to do, but I wound up getting it. Unfortunately, it doesn't really mean anything in today's society anymore, but it was just another one of those accomplishments that, for me, I just check it off and it means nothing. But I was, to date myself, I was in 4th and 5th grade, and that's when I was introduced to the band. 9,
10 years old.
Well, I was introduced to the band Live, the album Throwing Copper, and then Pearl Jam. I believe it was 10. Now, those albums could have been out for a while. It could have been new. I have no idea, but that's when I was introduced to Pearl Jam, Live, Korn, Tool, Nine Inch Nails, Locally, I said, oh my God, there is a whole nother world. And because of the Boy Scouts actually turned me into this huge metalhead. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of evolved from there. But I remember I was going to middle school and I'm listening to Wu-Tang Clan and Tupac, and because of, again, some of the kids a lot of the guys that I was in Boy Scouts with, not only did they listen to metal, but then I was introduced to Tupac, Biggie, Master P, even Insane Clown Posse. I was like, oh my God, there was this entire crazy world of music that the Boy Scouts, not only did it teach me how to shoot 12 gauge shotguns, but it introduced me to a crazy world of just heavy metal and gangster rap. And it was just, that was my experience at the Scouts. I know a lot of people can shit on it, but it's my experience was completely different. And a lot of people were a lot more envious.
I didn't learn shit from them. I already knew how to tie a knot before I joined them anyways. Need their fucking help.
Well, that's the funny thing. I learned a lot of knot tying that. A lot of people started freaking out because they said, how do you know how to tie that? I'm like, because I know how to do the basic shit. And it was just one of those...
Nah. Boy Scouts suck.
If you were...
You know what it was? The Boy Scouts were an excuse for the adults to get together and get fucked up, while their kids were preoccupied tying knots and learning how to start fires.
It was not the case for us because our parents they had to be sober because they were like 24/7. Where the hell are these kids? These kids are running off playing manhunt and paling themselves in the woods.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a big deal for us. Play that fucking song. You're saying I bet I don't know it. I do know that song. God damn it. Fuck. Really?
Yep.
When we moved here, I was 7 years old. When we lived in Florida, I mean, part of Florida we lived in was like really tropical, you know, like, and the music kind of fit with that. So, you know, there was a lot of like the electric slide and a lot of, you know, reggae and stuff like that. And it was like a permanent party. Every time you'd go out to dinner, they'd play the same kind of music. It was either that or like 70s rock. And we come out to Vegas, and my favorite thing to do as a kid was ride around in the truck with my dad. You know, just everywhere he wanted to go or had to go, I needed to be there. Like I'm going with Dad. You know, hardware store, Home Depot, whatever. And we found this radio station out here. It was called Comp 92.3, and they had like a really raunchy morning show. You know, like the way radio used to be in 1995. And then there was X 107.5 Extreme Rock. And they played Howard Stern in the morning from New York. So we'd listen to Howard Stern every morning, and then they'd start playing music, and they would play the same things that you were just talking about, you know, like Tool, Nine Inch Nails, I guess Local H, Rob Zombie.
God, you are so fucking young then.
I was.
Because when I was growing up, Rob Zombie was White Zombie.
Yeah, it was.
I knew White Zombie.
It was from the time I was 7 until like around 11 or 12. So there was a 3 to 4 year, but it was the same music for those 4 years. You know what I mean? It was the same thing on the radio every day, like Primus, just cool shit, like good music.
Hey, it's Chris again. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Come back each week as we dive headfirst into more misadventures. Find us on social media, and if you have a story you'd love to share, shoot us an email at aflvpodcast@gmail.com. That's AF, Achieving Failure, LV, Las Vegas, podcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week.